Next presentation is on mobile collections for product stewardship schemes from East Arnhem Regional Council, our Regional Waste and Environment Manager, Wes Van Zanden. And if you wouldn't mind putting your hands together and welcoming Wes to the front.
Hi everyone. Just excuse me if I have to take a few drinks of water between speaking. It's a hangover from spending 8 months living in a coal mine in Vietnam. So it makes it a bit hard to speak sometimes, but we'll get through it. It's all right. So we heard a lot about selling really good innovative projects and things to all our councils and lots of policies and procedures and stuff like that. I'm going to talk to you about what it's like on the ground in our remote areas and the small amounts of stuff that we have, how hard it is, and some of the things that East Arnhem have done to try and improve it in our region that hopefully some of the other regional and remote communities can copy, change, edit, but just give you some ideas of what you guys can do, because we're doing really simple things to try and make it easier. That's our approach. We're not being innovative. We don't have the money or the skills or the people to do it. So that's what this is all about. If for those of you who don't know where the region is, we're on the east side of the NT. We are about 500-600 k's from Darwin. We've got 9 major remote communities. Of those, 5 are on islands, so that just exacerbates the problem of logistics, transport, all the things that everyone talks about in the NT. It makes it a pain in the butt to just do service provision more than anything. Like, forget about trying to get stuff out, just getting people to come over and help us, finding funding to support it, all that stuff. All the remote communities know what I'm talking about. It's difficult, but that's us. Just over there, we've got 2 language groups. So there's the Yolngu region to the north and the Anandiliakwa people in the Groot Archipelago to the south. And maybe they'll move on from us soon. We'll see what happens with that, with the parliament coming up. Anyway. Thank you to the speaker before. Now I don't have to speak about this. Stewardship schemes, everyone knows about them. It's all about circular economy, which I just learnt this week is a massive buzzword at the moment. I had a little bet about saying circular economy 5 times in my presentation, so I'm already at 2. And I thought, why don't I cheat and talk about circular economy unnecessarily? So there's 3. And I thought, well, that's not really fair to mention circular economy unnecessarily, but I did, because, it's all about circular economy. Bam, 5 times. Suck it. So yeah, product stewardship schemes. Do we like them in the remote communities? We would love them if they helped in any way to get our stuff out of the communities, but 90% of them don't. There's a couple, like Close the Loop, where it's through Australia Post. That one works easily for everyone. I assume everyone uses it or something similar because it actually is helpful for printer cartridges and what have you. But if you go to anything, whether it's tyres, e-waste, other things, oil, there's no help. You've got to get to Darwin yourself, and then they're willing to help, sort of. Anyway, yeah. So it's awesome. There's some of the things they got talked about before. Blah blah blah. So East Arnhem's strategy. About 2015, the waste manager and the director at the time sat down to look at the waste management strategy, what we're doing, what we can do better, and how to improve things. And they've had the idea of, well, let's use these stewardship schemes and their logistics channels to improve our recycling and waste management. That's really good in theory. That's what they're meant to do, help support local government and other communities to recycle and reuse things. In reality, as I just said, it didn't really work. So we sort of pivoted from that and looked at it more like, all right, well, if we can get it to Darwin, then maybe they'll help, which they have for the most part. So it's sort of that's still basically our strategy, but we had to find our own partnership with someone to actually be able to help us move our stuff hundreds of kilometres, which I'll get to later. And then our goals are really simple. We want to continue to improve education and awareness in our communities. We have like 7,000 people across 9 communities, 33,000 square kilometres or something like that. They're English as their third or fourth, sometimes fifth language. They don't start speaking English till they actually go to school. So there's 4 years there where they're not learning that sort of stuff. They're learning their own language, their own culture, their own way of doing things, and they come in and get dumped with all the stuff that we try and force down their throats. So if we can find ways of just improving the way we deliver things, then that will help in the way that we improve our litter problems and illegal dumping and all that sort of stuff in our areas. Obviously, waste diversion is everyone's goal, right? We don't want it going into the landfills, especially in our little islands where there's only a finite amount of space to do it. So wherever we can, we try and divert things from the landfill. And we've made the decision, it's a little bit airy-fairy, I guess, but ethical recycling, where I'll give tyres as an example. It's a pretty easy one. Anyone could get rid of a tyre, you just burn it, and then it's magically, it's gone from your landfill, so it's diverted. Awesome. But, not really. There's a few issues with that. So, you can find someone in Darwin to do it as well, and they'll recycle it for you. Sure. But we decided, look, if we're gonna get all that effort to send a tyre to Darwin, we want it to at least go through a scheme that's promoting, circular economy, and actually going to reuse or recycle it. So obviously we partnered with Tyre Cycle and the TSA on that. It's pretty expensive for us, but we don't send a lot in, so it's not a big deal. We cop it, and anything that benefits the community, we'll always try and push for that. So they're our main goals in everything that we try and look for when it comes to recycling. So how did we do it? So we've gone through, I think, 4 regional waste managers since 2015-16 when this first started. And basically every manager's come in, they've taken on board what the last one started and tried to make sure they grow it and improve it, and just keep it going if nothing else. And so it's not me. There's multiple people have done this. The director's actually been there the whole time, and they've been massive. He's a huge proponent of everything we do in the space. So the main point is, if you guys want to start this in your regional areas, there has to be someone in the organisation who's going to lead the change, and they need to be able to work out what their influence is. Can they get it up the chain, influence their directors and their CEOs to actually then promote it within the council meetings at your local authorities? Because that's where you've got to get on board first, because you need the funding to actually deliver things. We got really lucky. Our technical director jumped on board straight away. Our community director, he also got on board pretty quickly. We got a new CEO in just happened to be at the same time, who also jumped on board. And those 3 guys have been there since we sort of started making this change. A lot of the regional councils aren't that lucky, and there's high turnover even at the top level. So it's just something to be mindful of, is to always look at how you can influence people up, because they're going to help you influence the guys on the ground that have to do all the grunt work. And if they're not putting in targets and getting encouragement, they're not going to deliver the stuff that you want them to deliver. And link it to your strategies. Put in a few simple KPIs, a few actions. Review it every year. Review it and see what you can do. The next 2 are probably the 2 critical parts to anything in our remote communities when you want to set up anything with waste management. Firstly, or you can do it in either or really, but you got to set up partnerships and community education and engagement, which we've had a few presentations already. It's just ongoing. That doesn't stop. It doesn't matter if you're in Sydney or if you're in Darwin or if you're in Ramingining. Everyone's always got litter problems, everyone's always got illegal dumping problems, and everyone's always trying to recycle more and divert more from the landfills. So when you're setting up the partnerships with something like a stewardship scheme, look at what waste you've got, work out what schemes might actually help you. Some will, some won't. Find some of the recyclers, the collectors like a Tyre Cycle or a Mobile Muster, engage with them. But the critical one to all of us out in the middle of nowhere is negotiate on the logistics, whether it's with your freight company or with those stewardship schemes. It's the only way you're going to get anything done. We've been ultra lucky that C-Swift has come on board with us and negotiated well with subsidies. and they've looked at it from a corporate social responsibility, and they jump on board, they advertise it all they can, they go to similar things to this, and they talk about all the good things they do with East Arnhem, sending recycling materials back, and they promote the hell out of it. So it costs them money on the back end using back barging, but then they flip it around and they sell it as like a goodwill that they're doing to get more customers. So it's critical, whether it's a transport, like a road train or a barge, just constantly hit them until they give you something back. That's what we spent years trying to get it. And yeah, I've already talked about the education. I guess I'm just going to touch on that really quickly. Last week I was out at Remington School talking about Plastics Ocean Australia actually, and a few other little things. We touched on cash for containers, and they actually said they're not really interested in participating. And so, well, why is that? And over the years, the managers have gone out and talked to the principal. She's been there forever. And rather than looking at just collecting all the bottles, they went down the procurement route, and they've basically flipped it, and they've gone to completely green procurement. So they actually don't have any plastic bottles in their school. They've got all the biodegradable lunch equipment and all that sort of stuff. So she was like, we maybe have 10 bottles a week, or like Coke bottles a week. Obviously, when you go out to the basketball courts and all that sort of stuff, it's a bit different, but that's not really attached to the school. So to me, that's actually better than having a school go, yeah, we've got thousands of Coke bottles we don't know what to do with. So it was like just a little win that's like 5 years in the making. One little school, but everything sort of counts. That's your win for the day, by the way. And then obviously once you've actually set all that up, then you need to trial it somewhere to see if it works. And look at your streams, what your community values are, some of the high impact projects, and where you can get a quick, easy win that looks like a big benefit, like so the community can see the value in it, and obviously make sure you can measure it, review it, and adapt it, because we all work in these communities. It's not easy. So what did we do? We started with cash for containers. Sounds like an easy win. It's really hard to set up, really annoying. You don't get a lot out of it, but there's some personal rewards in it for me, and you can see it. You do see some benefit in the community once it gets going, once everyone gets used to it. So our initial plan, it was really simple. When you have these big community events like the festivals, the school days, fetes, sports carnivals, you do a cleanup day or something like that, you set up a little kiosk on the side and you do your 10-cent refunds and you hand out the bags. If you're doing a cleanup day, you have your recycling bag and your litter bag. And it's that awareness, getting people understanding that if you can pick it up, you might get a little bit of incentive out of it. It worked pretty well in the early stages doing it like that. So we got some government grants and we invested in these cages here with community targets. So we focused on a community-centric approach where people would theoretically put bottles in the cage and then the money would go into a community fund to be delivered to whether it's youth leadership programs, community development programs, whatever it is. Sounded awesome, worked pretty poorly, to be fair. So, here we go. I forgot about the video. So we also developed this video. So it's just a little thing just to help promote it when you're going out to the community, so that, it's mostly in their language, all that. And that's what we try and do with everything, is make sure it's, we try and get it in both languages. Sometimes the Anandiliaka one's a little bit harder, and they don't read their language as well as Yungulmata, but that's okay. We still try. That was the video that I couldn't get embedded, so it's pretty nice, black screen there. Thank you, Council Biz, would be my response to that. Yeah, they're so good. They're probably I'd say they're in the top 10. Thank you. They're in the top 10 for council IT support, I reckon. Okay, so I sort of touched on this already, what we did. So once we had Galawinku as our pilot project, like I said, it had some really big wins and some like, oh, I think this is going to work. So we put it out to all our 9 communities. We bought a bunch of those cages. We put targets on it. We sent them around. We let everything go. And we looked at the return on investment, things like that, and what's come into the communities. We looked at the barges. Somewhere like Galawinku, there's over 100,000 drinking containers coming into the island every month. So it's like, holy Christmas, that's a lot. So our long-term goal is like, 80% recovery like everyone else. If we can get 80,000 a month coming out of that, then it's a pretty big win. Ideally, you want to also reduce the 100,000 coming in, but that's Haymore's job.
Done, buddy, done.
And then, so the money goes into a holding account, and then our local authority has a meeting to discuss a bit further about how we can spend the money. Like I said, we reviewed it in 2019 because it wasn't really getting much engagement. We wanted to sort of think about, why that was for our communities. The litter reduction that we're hoping to see, it wasn't really there. Some communities better than others, like you'd expect. It was pretty negligible, and what you really get out of it is that there was just very little behaviour change having it as a community focus. It's really good having the cages around the stores and the ovals for the events, and they do get used, but we looked at our community. We engaged with EnviroBank and a few other partners. We talked to the stakeholders, and we came to the conclusion that direct incentive is best. That's where it worked when we're at the festival and people got $20 in their pocket. That's what worked. So we changed our whole system. We went to a monthly drop-off point. Like I said, they get direct refund back in their pocket as quickly as we can so that we don't get too many phone calls. We set up our agreements with EnviroBank and with the EPA. We got licenses to be proper collection depots. And then we rolled it out across all 9 communities. So we try and offer a monthly collection depot in all 9 communities every month during the same week. And then once that was set up, we actually got in some other stewardship schemes. So mobile musters, the easy win. So you can see on the bottom there, we've got the cash for containers at the top. We barely advertise it, but mobile phones, we actually give a 50-cent rebate per phone given to us just to try and incentivise not throwing them in the bin. And what we've found is there's usually one person in each community that basically goes around and collects them all, and they turn up at the depot with a bag of like 50 phones, and no one else gives us any. So whatever, someone's getting money. That's all that really matters, right? They're not going in the landfill. So we take that as a humorous little win. Some of our results, look, it's not. I just want to be really clear. We're not talking big numbers here. We're scratching this. A, we're scratching the surface on what we can do, but B, we're just little. So we're not really trying to compete with anyone. We're competing with ourselves. We're trying to improve on what we do, and if we can inspire some of the other regional communities, then that's good for me. So these are Milingimbi, Yirrkala and Galawinku. So these are mostly from the last month. And just as an example, so the one in the bottom right-hand corner, all the bags there, that's about 15,000 containers. And the next slide actually is better. So that picture on the right, all those bulker bags is for just over 40,000 containers in 1 month. That's Milingimbi. They love to drink Coke, so represent. And there's the guys actually sorting and counting just before that, and then them taking it to the barge there in the truck. But so for me, when I go out there and help, because we're such big teams that the managers get to go and count too, when you see it at the end, you see these bulker bags that are this high and this wide, and they're full of plastic and aluminium, and you just think, holy Chris, wow, that would be a combination of strewn across our community and in our landfill. And that's the message I keep going back to our Indigenous employees when they're doing it, and they get to actually see physically how much stuff is not going in the landfill. It actually opens their eyes a lot to what they're doing, because it's such hard work. They can't count to hundreds. So we keep it short, try and get them to 20 or 30 at a time and then start again. But like they're counting for a couple of days at a time, just counting and sorting, and it gets pretty monotonous and frustrating, and they maybe don't turn up for a day. But that's right, they do enough, and we get through it. But the end results every month it's pretty rewarding even for them, which is awesome. So what's some of the actual numbers, just so you can get an idea of what we do? Since really changing at the back end of the 2019-2020 financial year, so it's really only been 2 years, we've done just over 1.6 million containers through the scheme. This year's actually been quite a down year for us. I stopped the program for several months because we wanted to fix up some of our procedures around cash handling. So it's actually, that's closer to a 6-month number, that 600,000 estimated we've got 1 month left. So we were on track to reach our million container target for a year. But for me personally, I spent 5 years on Groot Island where there's a large royalty component. They heavily focus on classic white saviour approach of how can we not give them money to spend on whatever they want? How can we control how they spend the money? So to be able to run a program where we're delivering just under $150,000 directly into people's pockets in 2 years, that's like a major little tick in my heart, personally. And then on the flip side, like I said, we've also got the mobiles that we barely advertise, and it's something that we need to do better. But there's just under 800 mobile phones collected during our container scheme, so they do get delivered. We'll take them anytime, but we pay if they do it during the CDS program. 800 in 2 years, sounds like nothing, but that's better than 800 going into our landfill with all the batteries and stuff that goes with it. And just under $400 going into someone's pocket. And like I said, it's usually an old lady who's on the pension, living in housing commission, and maybe it goes to a pack of cigarettes or to some food for the family or something like that. So I love seeing it. So that's sort of like our mobile collections. The main two we do is mobile muster and cash for containers. Some of our other stewardship schemes, they're a bit simpler. We use, obviously, separation bays at the landfill, but also drop-off depots or drop-off areas at our municipal depots to make it easier. So we partnered with Tech Collect for e-waste. Everything's been a bit of a down year for us this year, so we did 11 pallets to Tech Collect this year so far. So basically, we wait till we've got a massive amount of e-waste, then we wrap it up and send it on a pallet to Darwin, and then they sort it out from there. What we want, obviously, is Tech Collect or whoever to pick it up from our community and us not have to organise it through a CSIFT or through a Nighthawk or something like that. It's through the stewardship scheme, right? That's meant to be the point, is it's a life cycle analysis. I can't remember the words I want to use. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, and that's a common trend through these ones. For us, the schools, it's not the people. This one's not really for the residents. It's the schools, the Aboriginal corporations, local like the other government authorities in the region. They have their procurement every couple of years. They rip through all their laptops and stuff. So that's sort of the target for that one. As I said before, the mobiles, they love it. And we have little boxes in our council offices, and we do a bit of promotion, just letting people know that they can drop them off. And like I said, about $160 so far this year has gone back into people's pockets for that one. And then tyres. Everyone loved crapping on TSA. Yes, that was so good. That was a cracker. Tried to call you 20 times and no one answered, and then you wouldn't give me the runaround. Yeah. Anyway. That was really good. And they had no answer. Like, crazy. Anyway, good to see that they stuck around for the 2 days as well. So what we did is we got a grant for a container or two in each community, and we have our separation bay at the landfill, and EPA isn't here. So, and then we try and get them back into that container at our depot as regularly as possible so that no one starts a fire in our landfill. We also have set it up with some of our mechanical workshops through Aboriginal corporations where it actually sits at their workshop and they just fill it up and then we send it through to Tyre Cycle for them, and then swing the cost back to them directly without any landfill fees or anything like that. So it's just like it was a negotiation. Like, we're not trying to make money, and they're our biggest contributor to tyres. So it's working so far, and if it keeps working, we'll try it in some of our other communities as well. And everyone loves a good battery. So we've done just over 15 tonnes of batteries out of our communities this year. Again, a couple of years ago, we got a small grant for some of those battery boxes. So we got roughly 2 in each community. It's not quite. And they take between sort of 25 and 40 just car lead acid batteries. And then we have them separated at the landfill, and then we go and collect them in those smaller boxes in the middle. And then we deliver them. We're meant to put cardboard in between them just to help with the packaging and everything like that. That's actually a really easy project that we started. Currently, we're using Cell and Parker. We've gone through Sims in the past. That's just whoever gives you the best deal with what you're doing at the time. But it's basically just scrap metal, right? Like, everyone takes it, and you get a bit of a rebate for it. So it's a bit of a win-win. So this was a little spin-off project. Because we've got these sort of mobile things set up, people are used to going to a specific area and getting a thing and getting a bit of money back now. So we had major litter problems on Millingimbie, and we're like, what the hell are we going to do? This is just constant. It's painful. Let's incentivize it. So we started, initially it's called Cash for Litter. We changed it to Cash for Trash because it just sounds better. And basically Millingimbie is separated into 5 camps. So every week we go to a different camp and we advertise it and we say, hey, everyone come down for 2 hours, pick up a bag, pick up as much litter in the area as possible, and you get $5 back for it. It's a short-term Band-Aid solution. We all understand that, but in an 8-week trial, we picked up just over 1,600 bags, about 6,000 kilograms worth of litter, and so the people got $5 a bag for that. So, like, it's actually not that much money, really. Like, we had money from our municipal team because no one wanted to work for us for 6 months. So it's like, just under 10 grand to the community was completely spotless. And the reason that was important is it allowed our municipal team to, when they walk out to do their weekly litter pickup, they could actually see a light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't this overwhelming mess that they go, oh, stuff this, I'm not doing that because I won't make a difference. They could actually go out and do their street cleaning and see a result that it's clear when they're done, rather than they'd go out for hours and they'd done nothing. So that was the whole reason for it. Get it clean so then the municipal guys could actually do their job without it overwhelming them. And it worked pretty good. We're going to trial it in a couple of other communities, but it requires the council to continue picking up all the rubbish. And then you've got to do the education around it to try and get people to stop throwing things on the ground. So what did we learn so far? It's not easy. Cash for containers is not easy, but it's worth it. And if you can find a way to do it in your small communities, I guarantee that you'll find it really rewarding. Make sure you've got everyone on board because, like I said, you've got to have the councillors on board to get the funding, finance team on board to allow you to get money to pay people. And then you need the dudes in the community to actually want to go and pick up the bags and you don't have to do the counting, but either do the counting or just do the bagging them up and taking them to the barge or to the freight company. And so obviously the more committed the ground staff are, so really it's the more Indigenous staff who are committed to it, then the more successful a depot is, because if they can't be bothered counting or they can't be bothered picking it up, then they'll eventually just stop showing up or they'll have extended smokos, which is never good for anyone. And what I really like about it is we're providing direct benefits and individual incentives, and that's just all it does is increase engagement. So to me, that's a big win. And it's important to be flexible and adaptable. And I put the last 2 in there because that was something that we didn't have any good procedures in place for how to actually set up the depot. We didn't have good policies around the financial management of the money. And so if you can set that up at the start, there's massive turnover in all our communities. So being able to hand someone a little procedure, go through it with them, whether it's over Teams or in person, maybe help them on the first day, makes a big difference to these sort of things when we're talking in pretty small quantities. So it's just getting it set up right. Some of the other, just to touch on, partnerships that we've got that I didn't mention. Close the Loop, EnviroBank. We haven't actually started with B-Cycle, so we're in the process of going through EcoCycle and B-Cycle for the household batteries. So we haven't actually started explicitly working in that space yet, but let you know next time how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. Thanks. Done.